You better thank me for doing this. You should. Because I actually had to look at the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail, a website so buried in ads that you can barely find the words, and mandates that you turn off your ad block in order to access it. The asshole of the internet. But on occasion, actually provides information that none of the other 20-something sites are able to provide. And for this story, I did have to go to the Daily Mail, but so I don't get a stroke in the meantime, I'm going to make sure I click over to another article before I need it. No, that one's flashing too. How about the AP? Thank you. I just get something about David Beckham's child marrying a rich heiress, which that was probably the most predictable headline of all time. But who knows if it's true, because it's right above how long does $1 million last after 60? That's good. That means they think I'm a 60-year-old on the internet. I can live with that. But the story that I had to dive into the ad-ridden Daily Mail in order to find is one of corruption, thievery, debauchery, and sin, which is kind of the theme of the day today, because both videos that we're releasing today are about debauchery and sin. 45% of all of the videos we make are about debauchery and sin. Maybe we're just like Sin TV. Football sins, at least, except this one actually breaks the law. There's a corruption scandal erupting down under, and I'm not talking about hemorrhoids, I'm talking about the A-League in Australia. It revolves around a team called MacArthur FC, which just sounds incredibly colonial for some reason. But anyways, A-League club MacArthur FC is alleged to have a captain that is in on fixing matches for a random South American drug lord or gambling kingpin or whoever. Some dude that's big and probably wears nice fancy leisure suits and makes a lot of money. And part of the way he makes a lot of money, apparently, is that he's been getting funneled betting information by the captain of MacArthur FC. Those are the allegations. Obviously innocent until proven guilty, but when you get arrested, and you only, were fixing games, you probably did something majorly wrong. Now, the player in question is a guy named Ulysses Davila, which I think rather insanely, the Daily Mail this is how they introduce him. I'm not making any edits here and just try to ignore the, epilepsy-inducing advertisements flashing all around the sentence I'm attempting to show you. Ulysses Davila is one of the 3 players who are part of an alleged A-League betting scandal that has rocked the code. I don't really know what they're trying to go for there. Maybe the coast, maybe the code, and I'm just not really understanding the sentence. Then referring to Davila, they say, the Mexican, whose wife Lily died suddenly almost 2 years ago. Jesus, man. I mean, look, I don't really know the journalistic relevance to including that as like the defining characteristic. This is kind of the part of the part of the story where you'd go, Ulysses Davila, the Mexican who made 5 appearances for the Mexican U21 team, or the guy that, had 5 assists and 2 yellow cards this season. Oh, by the way, those yellow cards might have been tied into the betting, but they just drop in whose wife Lily died suddenly almost 2 years ago, because they really wanted to get a hyperlink in somewhere beneath off-road adventuring in Maine ads. As if this site wasn't whoring itself out enough to every advertiser that's ever rubbed 2 pennies together, they had to make sure to include the fact that this guy's wife died 2 years ago because they happened to have written another ad-clogged story about it. But apparently Ulysses Davila, and the only reason we're on the Daily Mail, is working with somebody alleged to South America, will be, I should just read. It will be an alleged South American organized crime figure dubbed the Instructor. It will be alleged a South American organized crime figure dubbed the Instructor was involved in the scheme. Honestly, a miracle I could find that sentence in the first place, considering it's sandwiched between 3 pictures and kind of looks like just the description of this video. But regardless, some dude named the Instructor was involved in the scheme and working with Ulysses Avila in order to try and cheat games, basically. Except they weren't cheating games, they were doing something that now sounds quite familiar. They were getting yellow cards at the right time. Ulysses Avila involved 2 other players in this, 2 teammates that were given up to 10,000 Australian dollars, like 6,600 freedom units, to deliberately receive yellow cards in a scheme that was set up to help the Instructor, which that's a sick nickname. Anytime you get to nickname status as some sort of a legal operator, that's sick. I feel like I'm gonna end up watching a Netflix documentary about how you ended up in jail for the rest of your life. So I mean, it is maybe short-lived, but the Instructor. Have you been naughty? That just hits different from underneath a mustache anyways. But the players that were identified beyond Ulysses Avila were guys named Kieran Bacchus and Clayton Lewis, who were just taking a paycheck. And the whole gambit apparently made the Instructor hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't know, it's not listed at least anyways, how much Ulysses Avila would have been taking from that. But anytime you're syncing up 3 players and them getting yellow cards at particular times, you can hang a pretty sweet parlay on that and end up making some serious cash. And it wasn't just the 3 players. There is a 4th player that they want to interview that was involved in the scheme, they're alleging, but he is not currently in New South Wales, which is the part of Australia that the jurisdiction that they're currently operating in. So they're threatening to extradite him if he does not return to New South Wales to face questioning. So the guy hasn't technically been like fully arrested yet, but they definitely believe he was involved in it. So we're now talking about 4 players that are alleged to have been linking up their yellow card acquisition in order to make some dude money and then have some of that money filter down to them. Now, there have been betting scandals in the game. There are going to continue to be more betting scandals, by the way, because betting is advertised everywhere, and players are human beings. And if those advertisements work, then players are going to be betting. Not to mention, you have to imagine there is at least a small allure if you are a player controlling, perhaps, whether you get a yellow card or not, and you can just have your friend place a bet on that, and then, hey, maybe they take you out to dinner that evening on the money they won on the fact that, hey, I'm just not going to get a yellow card today. Don't worry about it, boss. This is the double-edged sword to gambling companies attempting to take over the entire world. But this is the worst kind. This is the worst kind of match-fixing scandal that you can possibly have. If you are rigging matches, right, to achieve a certain result other than you just betting on yourself to win, it's a disaster for the game, right? And the A-League is already competing with Aussie rules football, rugby, cricket. There's only like 30 million people in Australia, man. There's like, they can only play so many sports, right? And soccer's been elbowing its way in there, and Australia's obviously had a very good run of making and doing damage at World Cups over the last couple of cycles. But this is still a nation that is considered a backwater for football, and the A-League has had well-documented struggles with ultras that I've talked about before, throwing flares and getting in giant tussles on the field and everything else. It is a weird league like MLS, where they don't have promotion and relegation, and now all of a sudden you've got one of the teams being roped into match fixing, and not just anybody. We're talking about the captain of the club here in multiple instances. The investigators named 2 particular matches on November 24th and December 9th, which they say were successful instances of getting the right yellow cards at the right time. And then they also kind of hilariously said that there were 2 unsuccessful attempts on April 20th and May 4th. Now, I find that particularly hilarious. After the successful attempts, they were not caught. After 2 unsuccessful attempts, our boy, the instructor, might have just leaked this out to get them in trouble. It's the sort of thing that you can hold over a player's head once all of a sudden they're in on, rigging matches for you. It's basically every mob movie I've ever watched. You rig one match, the person that's helping you rig the match and making most of the money on it saves enough of the correspondence to kind of hold it over your head. If you don't successfully rig more matches or more games, then they can release that information and get you in trouble. I'm not saying that's what happened, but the timeline suggests that is what happened. Which begs the question, how many people out there are successfully getting away with this and not pissing off the instructor in order to get themselves in trouble? But as Lucas Paquetá has proven conclusively, it's really not that hard to get a yellow card. So I have to believe at least some of these players were probably having second thoughts, not super emotionally invested in attempting to get the yellow card in the first place, any of those sorts of things. But there is one important caveat that the investigators have made very clear, and that's that the suspicious activity was exclusively offshore. There were actually no bets placed in Australia, which makes it really impressive that this was caught to me, right? Because also, who in South America is betting on A-League? They need to call the hotline. That shouldn't even exist, right? If you're in South America and you're betting on the Australian League, significant amounts that can make you hundreds of thousands of dollars based off yellow cards, you have a problem or you have an inside man. So that's fair. They probably saw one bet on random squad players at MacArthur FC, right? All it took was one bet. And that's all it took. The one bet on somebody getting a yellow card, they're like, wait a second. No way. Especially 4 times. I mean, that's a preponderance of evidence. But no betting in Australia. So the A-League, in terms of influencing results inside the country, not a problem. Just Ulysses Avila being from Mexico, maybe that helped create the connection, Central America to South America. Who knows, right? But he was at least a foreign player and a captain of a club that had the gravitas to recruit, I got gravitas in there again, to recruit other players at the club and end up causing a serious problem for the A-League. Who knows how this is all going to play out? Except for me. I know. This is going to continue to happen, and it's going to get worse the more betting gets advertised all over the place. Because if you can bet on an A-League match in South America, you can bet on an A-League match in Uzbekistan. right? And it's going to be hard to catch everywhere, especially for a league like the Premier League, where those bets can be more easily disguised and you aren't just the one degenerate betting on the A-League in South America.